Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in Legacy. Today we're looking at Enchantress. Enchantress is a value deck that centers around enchantments. Argothian Enchantress, Scythess, and Enchantress's Presence all draw a card whenever you cast an enchantment. Therefore, every enchantment can replace itself, and when you have any of the aforementioned cards in multiples, every enchantment becomes card positive. From there are some notable enchantments to go through before getting to the win cons, but in general, the plan is to delay the opponent's plan, draw cards, and eventually find a combo to win the game. Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth help the deck ramp and get to its payoffs faster. Where early mana acceleration like this is normally bad later in the game, in Enchantress, the Enchantress draw effects make these otherwise dud cards into draw spells. On Thin Ice, Swift Reconfiguration, and/or Cast Out serve as removal. Elephant Grass serves as an anti-creature card, staving off attacks until the cumulative upkeep cost becomes too great, by which point you'll have hopefully stabilized. Solitary Confinement also protects against damage at the cost of discarding. However, the card loss is more than counterbalanced by the deck's numerous draw effects. If the opponent can't answer Confinement, you can just turtle behind it until you find a win condition. Sterling Grove protects your other enchantments, can find specific cards you're looking for, and makes all of your other enchantments removal-proof in multiples. Destiny Spinner protects your cards from counterspells and, with enough mana, can win the game via its ability to make big beaters. Paladin class can also somewhat protect your spells during your own turn. Serra's Sanctum is this deck's Gaia's Cradle, being a way to generate a ton of mana, including for Destiny Spinner. Now, onto the combo win. Rest in Peace and Helm of Obedience in combination can exile mill the opponent's entire deck. Helm mills them until they bin a creature or X cards, but since all of the cards are exiled by Rip, they'll go through their entire deck instead. Rest in Peace is good in general since it counteracts any deck that uses its graveyard such as Delver, Lands, Reanimator, etc. Energy Field is a card that also works well with it. The biggest downside to Helm is that it's an artifact and therefore none of the Enchantress cards synergize with it. For example, you can't search for it with Sterling Grove and Destiny Spinner doesn't protect it from counterspells. However, the deck draws enough cards that finding it isn't a problem. Some versions of Enchantress play Living Wish as a toolbox card to find various hate creatures and lands from the sideboard, and to get win cons such as Doomwake Giant or Emrakul. The deck may also play Big Mana Ramper Sanctum Weaver or Devoted Druid in versions with Swift Reconfiguration to generate infinite green. Sideboarding and Weaknesses. Enchantress's first big problem is that it's slow. It's often not doing anything early in the game, and even once the draw engine starts, that still doesn't mean it's actually affecting the board. The second is a lack of interaction. Enchantress often only has Beseiju and On Thin Ice. Solitary Confinement and Elephant Grass are only useful against creatures and only for as long as you can pay for them. This makes Enchantress very weak to combo decks. Third is that it has no way of tutoring for or protecting Helm of Obedience or Living Wish in the main board, and the opponent can simply counter those cards while ignoring everything else. Even with Confinement and a draw engine, the deck can't win if it can't get past counterspells, and since it draws so many cards, it can deck out before being able to win. Sideboarding Endurance can be a way to mitigate decking, although not if you control Rest in Peace or Solitary Confinement. Therefore, the deck's sideboard needs to shore up these problems, especially beating counterspells and hating on narrow strategies. Tips and tricks. It's best to avoid putting Utopia Sprawl or Wild Growth on non-basic lands, since then they're susceptible to Wasteland. On Thin Ice targets a land on cast and a creature once it enters, meaning you can cast it just to draw off an Enchantress effect and don't have to choose which creature to target until you see what cards you draw. The lands Destiny Spinner animates gain trample. Solitary Confinement also protects against anything that targets you, such as Tendrils of Agony. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Enchantress. I want to thank my fellow players in the Magic community for whom sharing their experiences helps make these guides possible. You can find additional resources, such as an up-to-date deck list, in the description. If you think I left out anything important or got something wrong, please leave your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned to see what deck we look at next time.